The Pentagon War Room smells like coffee and pressure. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting everything in that artificial brightness that makes people look tired even when they're not. The kind of light that reveals every flaw, every hesitation, every bead of sweat. Lieutenant Commander Avery Blackwood stands at attention near the back wall. 28 years old, 5'9", athletic build earned through a decade of training that started before most kids learned to drive. Brown hair pulled back regulation tight. No makeup, no jewelry except the silver watch on her left wrist, the kind with luminous hands designed for operations in total darkness. Her hands rest at her sides, fingers relaxed but precise. The stillness of someone who knows how to wait, how to watch, how to breathe when 40 pairs of eyes are measuring every micro movement, cataloging every tell, waiting for the crack in the armor. She's been standing here for 7 minutes. Hasn't shifted weight once. Hasn't cleared her throat or adjusted her collar or done any of the thousand small things people do when they're uncomfortable. Because Avery Blackwood doesn't get uncomfortable. She gets focused. Admiral Garrett Vaughn sits at the head of the conference table. 62 years old, bald head reflecting the lights like polished stone, face carved by 3 decades of classified briefings and decisions that ended careers or saved lives, sometimes both. His uniform is immaculate, 4 rows of ribbons arranged with geometric precision, silver dolphins gleaming at his collar, the insignia of a man who commanded submarines before he commanded people. He leans back in his chair, arms crossed, the universal posture of power, of testing, of watching someone squirm and deciding if they're worth the oxygen they're consuming. Around the table, 40 officers, 23 men, 17 women, ranging from fresh-faced lieutenants to grizzled colonels with 20 years of operational experience, all pretending to review their tablets while actually watching Avery, wondering who she is, why she's here, what makes her special enough to warrant this kind of scrutiny. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood. Vaughn's voice cuts through the low murmur of conversation like a blade through silk. Smooth, sharp, controlled. Everyone goes quiet. Your file says you transferred in 3 days ago. Naval intelligence. Top of your class at Annapolis. 17 confirmed cyber intercepts leading to successful operations in the South China Sea theater. He pauses, lets the words hang there. Impressive credentials. The compliment lands flat. No warmth, just assessment. The way you'd comment on a new rifle's specifications before deciding whether to trust it in combat. Vaughn uncrosses his arms, leans forward slightly. Your father had a call sign too. The temperature in the room doesn't change. The lights don't flicker. But something shifts, some invisible current that runs through the older officers, the ones with gray at their temples and knowledge of operations that never made it into official records. Let's hear yours, Lieutenant Commander. Avery breathes, the rhythm her father taught her when she was 6 years old, before his last deployment. Before the silence that stretched from weeks into months, into years, into 2 decades of not knowing. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out. Her chest rises and falls with mechanical precision. Not nervous, not anxious, just controlled. The way a sniper controls their heartbeat before a shot. The way a diver controls their air when the tank is running low and the surface is still too far away. Shadow. The word drops into the room like a stone into still water. Ripples spread outward in the form of shifting glances, raised eyebrows, uncomfortable silence that speaks louder than any exclamation could. A few of the younger officers exchange confused looks. Shadow, what kind of call sign is that? Sounds like something from a video game. But the older ones go very still. Commander Sullivan Thorne sits in the corner, 58 years old, face weathered by desert sun and salt water. Salt and pepper hair cut high and tight. 3 rows of ribbons on his chest, Navy Cross prominent among them. He's been watching Avery since she entered the room, cataloging the way she moves, the way she stands, the way her fingers rest at her sides with the kind of relaxed readiness that takes years to develop. Now his eyes widen. Just a fraction. Just enough. He knows. Major Vincent Graves sits 2 seats from Vaughn's right. Lean intel officer in his mid-40s. Sharp features, sharper mind. The kind of man who trusts data more than intuition and considers emotion a liability. He straightens in his chair, voice cutting through the silence. Shadow was a SEAL team leader who went dark 20 years ago. Clinical, precise, the way you'd read an obituary. Operation Kingfisher, Indo-Pacific Theater, year 2005. He pauses for effect, for impact. No body recovered. Case closed as missing in action. Another beat, another knife twist. Some would say desertion. Avery's jaw tightens. The first crack in the composure. The first hint that this isn't just a briefing. It's personal. It's a wound that never healed and still bleeds when someone presses on it. But she doesn't speak, doesn't defend, doesn't take the bait that Graves is dangling in front of her like a lure. She just breathes. In, hold, out. Vaughn's smile fades like frost melting under direct sun. He uncrosses his arms slowly, leans forward, leans. The shift from casual assessment to direct confrontation happens in the space between heartbeats. That's quite a legacy to claim, Lieutenant Commander. His tone has shifted, the mockery gone, replaced by something colder. Something that feels like a challenge wrapped in a warning, wrapped in a threat. Especially for someone who just transferred in 3 days ago. Avery keeps her gaze forward, not quite meeting Vaughn's eyes, but not avoiding them either. The military middle ground. The space that says, I'm respectful of your rank, but I'm not afraid of your judgment. Thorne tilts his head slightly, studies the way Avery adjusts her watch without looking at it. The way her fingers rest at her sides, ready, but not tense. The posture of someone who's been trained not just to fight, but to wait, to observe, to strike only when the moment is perfect. He's seen that posture before, 20 years ago. On a man who taught him everything he knows about patience and precision and surviving when survival seems impossible. Vaughn lets the silence stretch like a rubber band pulled to its breaking point. Then he waves a hand dismissively. Take your seat, Lieutenant Commander. We have actual threats to discuss. Avery moves to the empty chair near the back of the table. Her right hand brushes the edge of her laptop bag as she walks. The motion is casual, absent-minded. The kind of unconscious gesture people make 1,000 times a day. But her fingers curl around the strap with a grip that belongs to someone who's carried weapons under pressure. Index finger extended along an imaginary barrel line. Thumb applying counterforce. Textbook tactical hold. She doesn't notice she's doing it. Muscle memory doesn't need conscious thought. She sits, opens her laptop. The screen glows to life, casting blue light across her face. In the bottom corner, barely visible, unless you know where to look, a line of text scrolls past. Kingfisher declassified. Partial. Decryption in progress 12%. No one else can see it, but Thorne is still watching, and something in his expression shifts from curiosity to recognition. Vaughn pulls up a map on the main screen. Indo-Pacific region. Red zones marking areas of elevated threat activity. Blue zones indicating Allied naval positions. Yellow zones where intelligence is incomplete or contested. All right, let's get to work. His voice is all business now. The testing phase over, or maybe just postponed. We've got increased submarine activity near the Spratly Islands. Satellite imagery picked up 3 unidentified vessels. Likely Chinese, conducting what looks like reconnaissance operations in international waters. Colonel Brooks, a square-jawed logistics officer in his 50s, taps his tablet. The gesture produces a soft click that carries in the quiet room. What's the assessment on intent? Are we looking at pure espionage or something more aggressive? Vaughn gestures toward Avery without looking at her. The dismissive wave of someone introducing a minor character in a play they don't expect to have any significant lines. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood is our new intelligence liaison. Fresh eyes from Annapolis and Naval Intelligence. Let's hear what the textbooks have to say. Low chuckles ripple around the table. Not cruel, not malicious, just the casual condescension that comes when experienced operators meet someone whose ink is still wet on their commission papers. Avery doesn't react, doesn't bristle, doesn't show any sign that the mockery even registers. She stands, moves to the front of the room with her tablet in hand. Steps measured, no hurry, but no hesitation either. The walk of someone who knows exactly where they're going and doesn't need permission to get there. She taps the screen. A secondary overlay appears on the main display. Heat signatures rendered in false color. Radio frequency patterns mapped in 3 dimensions. Shipping lane disruptions highlighted in red. The vessels are operating in a grid pattern. Her voice is calm, clinical. The tone of someone presenting data, not defending a position or proving their worth. Consistent with SciG int collection. Signal intelligence. They're not looking for targets. They're mapping our response times. Graves interrupts without looking up from his notes. That's textbook analysis. We already know they run signal drills. Give me something operational, something we can actually use. Avery pauses, one heartbeat, one breath. Then she zooms in on one of the red zone's fingers moving across the tablet with practiced efficiency. The timing coincides with a lapse in our satellite coverage, 14-minute window, every third rotation. They know our blind spots. They've mapped them, and they're testing whether we know they know. The room goes quiet. This time it's not dismissive. It's attentive. The shift from background noise to focused silence that happens when someone says something that actually matters. Vaughn leans forward, eyes narrowing. How do you know that, Quinn? Because I ran the coverage analysis against their movement logs, cross-referenced with historical patterns from similar operations in 2018 and 2021. The correlation is 93%. She pulls up a second screen, overlapping timelines, data streams intersecting at precise intervals, the kind of analysis that takes either sophisticated software or exceptional pattern recognition, or both. They're not testing our response time. They're testing our awareness gaps. Big difference. Brooks whistles low. That's a different threat level entirely. Vaughn doesn't acknowledge the point. Instead, he cuts her off with the precision of a surgeon making an incision. Where's your source validation? I don't see clearance codes on this data. Pending approval. Submitted for review 72 hours ago. Pending, Graves smirks. The expression of someone who just won a minor victory. Convenient. Avery closes her tablet, returns to her seat without another word. She doesn't argue, doesn't defend, doesn't try to convince anyone that her analysis is valid. She just sits down and goes back to her laptop, fingers moving across the keys with steady precision, the click of keys barely audible under the resumed murmur of conversation. The decryption progress bar in the corner ticks upward, 15%. The meeting continues. Maps, charts, threat assessments, logistics reports, the familiar rhythm of military planning sessions that have happened in rooms like this for decades. Avery contributes here and there, answering questions with accuracy that suggests either very good research or very deep experience. But every time she offers something that cuts too close to operational insight, Vaughn or Graves shuts her down. Too vague, not verified, needs more context. The pattern is clear. They're testing her, pushing her, waiting for her to crack or overreach, or show whatever weakness they expect from someone carrying a famous father's call sign. She does neither. Just keeps breathing, controlled, steady, the rhythm that keeps her centered when everything else is chaos. 30 minutes and Vaughn shifts the conversation. Let's talk about personnel reliability. We've had some concerns about information security. Loose lips in the lower ranks. He scans the room slowly, making eye contact with several officers, letting the implications settle. I want to remind everyone that clearance isn't a right, it's a privilege, and it can be revoked if there's any question of loyalty or competence. The words hang in the air like a guillotine blade suspended by a thread. Avery's fingers pause on the keyboard. Just for a second, just long enough for someone watching closely to notice. Then she resumes typing, but Thorne catches it. He's been watching her the whole time. The way she holds herself, the way she moves, the way her breathing stays controlled, even when challenged. There's something familiar about it, something that tugs at memories from 2 decades ago. Lieutenant Declan Rhodes raises his hand, 26 years old, boyish face that makes him look younger, nervous energy barely contained under the surface. The kind of officer who triple-checks everything because he's terrified of making a mistake. Admiral, I've been cross-referencing some of the older operational archives. There's a protocol discrepancy I wanted to flag for review. Vaughn waves him off with barely concealed impatience. Not now, Rhodes. We're focused on current threats. Rhodes hesitates, nods, lowers his hand. But as he does, he catches Avery's eye across the table. She gives him the smallest nod, almost imperceptible. The kind of acknowledgement that says, I see you, I hear you. We'll talk later. Rhodes's shoulders relax slightly. He opens his own laptop and starts typing. The tension in his jaw eases by a fraction. The meeting drags on for another 30 minutes. Same pattern, same rhythm. Maps and charts and assessments that will be compiled into reports that will be filed and probably never read. Avery contributes when asked, but she's careful, strategic, never volunteers more than necessary, never pushes back when challenged, never gives them an excuse to dismiss her completely. It's a masterclass in restraint, the kind of discipline that either comes from exceptional training or bitter experience, or both. An hour in, Vaughn announces a 15-minute break. Officers stand, stretching legs, refilling coffee cups, stepping into the hallway for quick phone calls or quiet conversations. Avery stays seated, eyes on her screen. The decryption bar is at 23%. She opens a secondary window hidden behind her main display. Types a series of commands that look like routine maintenance scripts but are actually routing protocols. Rerouting data through a backup server. Creating redundancy. Making sure that even if they shut her down, the process continues. Thorne approaches. He doesn't sit, just stands beside her chair, close enough that his voice won't carry beyond the immediate space. You handle yourself well. Avery looks up, expression neutral, professional. Thank you, sir. Your father. Thorne pauses, choosing his words with the care of someone navigating a minefield. He was a good man, one of the best operators I ever served with. Avery's eyes flicker, just for a moment, emotion breaking through the professional mask before she locks it down again. He was. Shadow wasn't just a call sign. Thorne's voice drops even lower, barely above a whisper. It was a philosophy. Move quiet, strike precise, leave no trace. Become the thing your enemy fears but can't see. I'm aware of the philosophy, sir. Thorne studies her with the intensity of someone trying to see through a disguise. You carry it well. The philosophy, the name, the weight. Before Avery can respond, Vaughn's voice cuts across the room like a whip crack. Commander Thorne, a word. Thorne straightens, gives Avery a final glance that might be respect or warning or both. Then he walks over to Vaughn. The two men step into the hallway. Through the glass walls of the war room, Avery can see Vaughn gesturing sharply. Thorne's posture defensive but firm. They're arguing about something, voices too muted to hear, but body language screaming conflict. Rhodes slides into the seat next to Avery, keeps his eyes on his own screen, but speaks quietly enough that only she can hear. Your decryption is running slower than expected. The archive has a secondary firewall I didn't account for. I can reroute through a tertiary node, but it'll take another 20 minutes minimum. Do it! Rhodes's fingers fly across the keyboard. Lines of code scroll past faster than most people could read. You know they're testing you, right? This whole meeting, the questions, the dismissals, it's not about the threat assessment. It's about seeing if you'll crack under pressure. I know. And you're just going to sit here and take it. Avery finally looks at him. Her eyes are calm, steady. The kind of calm that comes from absolute certainty about what you're doing and why. Patience isn't weakness, Lieutenant. It's strategy. Let them think I'm just another legacy kid riding Daddy's reputation. Let them underestimate me. Makes the next part easier. Rhodes blinks, then grins despite himself. Roger that, ma'am. Vaughn and Thorne return. The Admiral's face is tight, jaw set. Thorne looks like he's swallowed something bitter but necessary. They take their seats without speaking. Vaughn doesn't waste time on preamble. All right, let's wrap this up. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, you mentioned earlier that you were working on a comprehensive threat analysis. Let's see it. Full presentation. Avery stands, moves to the front again, pulls up her presentation on the main screen with practiced efficiency. It's a detailed breakdown of naval positioning in contested waters. Supply chain vulnerabilities across 3 theaters. Projected escalation scenarios based on current intelligence patterns. The data is solid, meticulous, the kind of analysis that takes weeks to compile. But halfway through, Graves interrupts. Where did you get this? He's leaning forward now, eyes narrowed. The casual dismissiveness replaced by something sharper, more dangerous. These coordinates, this level of operational detail, this isn't open source intelligence. It's from the Kingfisher archives. The room goes cold. The temperature doesn't actually drop, but it feels like it does. Everyone stops what they're doing, all eyes on Avery. Vaughn's face hardens into something that could cut glass. The Kingfisher archives are sealed, have been for 20 years. They were partially declassified last year under FOIA request. Avery's voice doesn't waver, doesn't show any sign that she feels the sudden pressure of 40 people staring at her. I submitted the formal request 3 months ago. It was approved 2 weeks before my transfer to this command. Graves shakes his head slowly. Even if that's true, even if somehow your request was approved, you'd need validation codes. Oversight clearance, direct authorization from MOM. I have it. Avery pulls up a document on the screen. Official letterhead, Department of Defense. Clearance stamps with dates and authorization numbers. Signatures from 3 separate reviewing officers. Everything in order, everything legitimate, everything damning. Vaughn stands slowly, the movement deliberate, controlled, the way a predator stands before it strikes. That file has been buried for 20 years. There's a reason it stayed buried. And there's a reason it was declassified. Avery's voice is still calm, but there's an edge to it now, a sharpness that wasn't there before. The edge of someone who's done being polite, because the information is relevant, because the patterns from Kingfisher match the patterns we're seeing now in the South China Sea, because history repeats when we refuse to learn from it. That's speculation. It's analysis based on verified intelligence. It's reckless. The room is silent, everyone watching. Avery and Vaughn locked in a standoff that's about more than just data and clearance levels. There's history here, ghosts that neither of them is willing to name out loud. Finally, Vaughn sits back down. The movement's sharp, controlled fury barely contained. Fine, show us what you've got. But if this is half-baked intelligence, Lieutenant Commander, if you're wasting our time chasing ghosts, you'll be filing logistics reports in Diego Garcia for the rest of your career. Avery nods once. She turns back to the screen, pulls up the next slide with fingers that don't shake despite the pressure. It's a map of the South China Sea, layered with old operational data from 2005 and current satellite imagery from 2025. The overlap is striking, impossible to ignore. Same shipping lanes, same blind spots in satellite coverage, same timing windows down to the minute. This, Avery points to a cluster of coordinates in the Philippine Sea, is where the Kingfisher team went dark. Radio silence. No extraction. No body recovery. 6 men vanished and the mission was closed as a loss. We know the history, Lieutenant Commander. Graves mutters it, but there's less conviction in his voice now. Avery ignores him. What we didn't know until the declassification is that the signal didn't just disappear. It was redirected through a military-grade relay station, the kind that requires authorization codes to override standard protocols. That gets their attention. Brooks leans forward. Redirected how by who? Through a relay station positioned here. Avery pulls up a schematic. Lines of communication mapped in 3 dimensions. Signal paths traced through multiple nodes. A single relay point highlighted in red. Someone intercepted the distress call. Someone with the authorization codes to override the automatic forwarding protocols. Someone made the decision not to send that signal to extraction teams. Vaughn's face is unreadable, carved from stone. That's a serious accusation. It's a documented fact, one that's been sitting in classified archives for 20 years. Graves stands abruptly. This is conspiracy theory nonsense. You're trying to build a scandal out of incomplete records and outdated technology. Signals fail all the time. Equipment malfunctions. That's not a cover-up. That's just war. Avery meets his gaze without blinking. Then explain the relay log. What relay log? She taps her keyboard. A new document appears on the screen. Rows of timestamps, authorization codes, signal paths traced with precision, and at the bottom a single line highlighted in yellow. Override, Vaughn G Delta 7. The room explodes, not with noise, but with tension so thick it feels like the walls are pressing inward. 40 people holding their breath. 40 people realizing they're witnessing something that can't be walked back. Vaughn doesn't move, doesn't blink. He just stares at the screen, jaw set like concrete. Graves looks between Vaughn and Avery. Confusion and alarm warring on his face. That's fabricated, has to be. But his voice lacks conviction. The certainty draining away as he looks at the authentication codes. The timestamps that can't be faked without leaving traces. It's archived. Avery's voice cuts through the shock. Timestamped, authenticated, cross-verified against 3 separate backup systems, and it's been sitting in a government server for 2 decades, waiting for someone to look. Vaughn finally speaks, his voice low, dangerous. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know the circumstances, the operational constraints, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Avery's voice doesn't rise, but it cuts like a scalpel. I know that Kingfisher was abandoned. I know that the distress signal was intercepted. And I know that someone made the call to leave those men behind. 6 men, including my father. That's enough. Vaughn slams his hand on the table. The sound echoes like a gunshot. This meeting is over. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, you're out of line. Consider yourself under formal review. Everyone out, now. The officers stand slowly, gathering tablets and files, casting uncertain glances at Avery as they file toward the door. Thorne lingers near his seat, but Vaughn shoots him a look that could melt steel. Thorne hesitates, then leaves with obvious reluctance. Avery is the last one standing. She closes her laptop with deliberate care. Every movement measured. Vaughn walks over, stops inches from her, close enough to be intimidating, close enough that she can see the fury and fear warring in his eyes. His voice drops to a harsh whisper. Your father went dark on Kingfisher. No body, no closure. Some say he deserted. You want to drag his name through the mud over some personal vendetta? That's your choice. But you will not drag this command down with him. Avery looks up, her eyes steady, unflinching. My father didn't desert. Then where is he? She doesn't answer, just holds his gaze for a long, silent moment. Then she picks up her laptop and walks out without another word. The hallway outside the war room buzzes with low conversation. Officers clustered in groups, whispering, speculating, watching Avery walk past with expressions ranging from curiosity to pity to respect. She doesn't stop, doesn't acknowledge any of them. Her hands are steady, her breathing controlled. But inside her mind is racing. The decryption is at 47%. Not enough, not yet. Rhodes catches up to her near the stairwell. That was intense. It was necessary. Vaughn looked like he wanted to throw you into the brig. He'll try, won't succeed. Rhodes glances around to make sure they're alone. The decryption is almost there. Another 15 minutes and we'll have full access to the relay logs. If there's more evidence, we'll find it. Avery nods. Keep it running. I need to make a call. She steps into an empty conference room, closes the door. The room is small, windowless, lit by a single overhead panel that flickers occasionally. She pulls out her phone, a secure model with military-grade encryption. Dials a number from memory. It rings twice before a voice answers. Male, professional, familiar. Veritas. Shadow Legacy, requesting status update. A pause, the sound of keys clicking in the background. Legacy confirmed. Authorization active. You're clear to proceed. What do you need? The decryption is at 47%. I need a buffer. Time to complete before they can trace the activity. Understood. We'll route through secondary channels and create false traffic patterns. You'll have 20 minutes before they can isolate the source. Is that sufficient? It'll have to be. The voice softens slightly. Be careful, Avery. Vaughn isn't just covering his career. He's covering something much bigger. Something that goes all the way to the top. I know. That's why I'm not stopping. The line goes dead. Avery pockets the phone, returns to the hallway where Rhodes is waiting with his laptop open. We've got a problem. What kind? The decryption hit a corrupted sector. The archive file is damaged. We're looking at partial data loss. Avery's stomach tightens. How much? Hard to say until we finish. Could be 10%, could be 30. The corruption is in the middle sections, which suggests intentional damage rather than degradation. Can you recover it? Rhodes hesitates. Maybe, but it's going to take time. And Vaughn is already suspicious. If he shuts down your access before we finish, we're done. Avery looks at the laptop screen. The progress bar is stuck at 51%. Frozen, the cursor blinking mockingly. She takes a breath. Controlled. Steady. Run a parallel extraction. Pull what you can from the backup servers. If the main file is corrupted, the backups might have clean copies. That'll take at least 30 minutes. And if they're monitoring network activity, they'll see it. Then we make it look like routine maintenance, file integrity checks, standard protocol that happens every day. Hide it in plain sight. Rhodes grins despite the tension. You're really good at this. I've had good teachers. They head back toward the war room. Most of the officers have dispersed, but a few remain. Huddled around tablets, speaking in low tones. Vaughn is gone. Graves is still there, along with Colonel Brooks and a handful of others. Graves looks up as Avery enters. Thought you were under review. I am, but my clearance is still active until Admiral Vaughn files the formal report, which means I'm still assigned to this briefing. Still authorized to access these systems. Graves narrows his eyes. You've got nerve, I'll give you that. I've got a job to do, sir. Mummy Brooks clears his throat. For what it's worth, Lieutenant Commander, that data you presented was solid. Whether Vaughn wants to admit it or not, there's a clear pattern. We'd be fools to ignore it. Thank you, sir. Avery takes her seat, opens her laptop. The decryption bar is still stuck at 51%, but underneath in a tiny sub-window hidden behind her main display, Rhodes's parallel extraction is running. 58%, 63%, 69%. The door opens. Vaughn strides back in, face like carved granite. Behind him, two military police officers, both armed, both stone-faced, both ready to follow orders without question. The room goes silent. Vaughn stops in front of Avery. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, you are hereby relieved of duty pending investigation into unauthorized access of classified materials. You will surrender your credentials and all devices immediately. Avery doesn't flinch. On what grounds, sir? On the grounds that you've accessed sealed files without proper oversight authorization. On the grounds that you've made unsubstantiated accusations against senior leadership in front of 40 witnesses. On the grounds that you've violated operational security protocols. Vaughn's voice is steady, controlled, but fury burns beneath the surface like magma under a thin crust. Do you dispute any of that? Avery meets his gaze calmly. I dispute the characterization, sir, but I don't dispute the actions. Everything I accessed was properly authorized. Everything I presented was factually accurate. Then hand over your laptop, now. Avery looks down at the screen. The extraction bar is at 73%. So close, but not close enough. She closes the laptop slowly, deliberately. I need to save my work first, sir. Protocol requires... I don't care about protocol right now. Vaughn interrupts. I care about security. Hand it over. Avery's fingers hover over the keyboard. Her mind races through options, scenarios, consequences. She can feel the entire room watching, waiting. Rhodes is frozen 2 seats over, eyes wide. The extraction's still running on his own machine, but vulnerable if they take Avery's laptop before the process completes. Thorne has reappeared in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The extraction bar ticks upward, 79%, 85%, 91%. Lieutenant Commander, Vaughn's voice drops to a lethal whisper. You have 30 seconds. 20 seconds. Rhodes shifts in his seat. His fingers dance across his own keyboard, hidden from Vaughn's view, rerouting the extraction, pushing it through a secondary server. Faster, harder, 15 seconds, 97%, 10 seconds, 99%. Vaughn reaches for the laptop. His hand moves toward the lid. Avery's hand shoots out. Not aggressive, just fast, pressing the space bar before he can close it. The screen flares to life. The extraction completes. 100%, a single line of text appears. Decryption successful. Files ready for upload. Vaughn freezes, his eyes flick to the screen. He sees the text, sees the file names queued for transfer. 5 seconds. Avery hits enter. The files begin uploading, not to her laptop, to the main server, the one everyone in the briefing room can access, the one that logs every action with timestamps and authentication that can't be erased. Vaughn's face goes white, then red. What did you just do? Avery looks up, her voice calm, clear. I saved my work, sir, as protocol requires. The room erupts into controlled chaos. Officers grab their tablets, pulling up the shared server. File names start populating across their screens. Kingfisher full relay log. Declassified Shadow 1. Extraction denied. Supporting docs override authorization. Vaughn G Delta 7. Authentication records. Graves stares at his screen, mouth slightly open. Brooks swears under his breath. Thorne steps fully into the room. Eyes locked on Avery with something that looks like awe mixed with respect. Vaughn reaches for the server control panel. Shut it down. Shut it all down, now. But Rhodes is faster. His fingers fly across his keyboard with practiced precision, locking the files, making them read-only, setting broadcast status so they're automatically replicated across multiple systems. Too late, Admiral. It's already distributed. Every terminal in this building has access. Every authorized user can review the files. Vaughn turns on Rhodes, fury blazing in his eyes. You're finished, Lieutenant. Court-martial. Dishonorable discharge. You'll never work in intelligence again. Maybe. Rhodes's voice shakes slightly, but he doesn't back down. But the truth is out there now. Can't put it back in the box. Vaughn's hand hovers over the emergency network lockdown button, the one that would trigger a full system shutdown and investigation. But he doesn't press it, because everyone in the room is watching, waiting. And if he shuts everything down now, it'll look like exactly what it is, a cover-up, a confirmation of everything Avery just implied. He's trapped, and he knows it. Avery closes her laptop, stands. Admiral, I'll surrender my device now, but the data is already on the server, authenticated, time-stamped, available for independent review. Vaughn doesn't move. His jaw works. His hands clench into fists at his sides. For a moment, it looks like he might lose control completely, might lash out physically. But then he takes a breath, forces himself under control. When he speaks, his voice is ice. This isn't over, Lieutenant Commander. No, sir, Avery says quietly. It's just beginning. The military police step forward. One of them reaches for Avery's laptop with gloved hands. She hands it over without resistance. Cooperates fully as they check her pockets, her bag, her phone. Standard procedure for someone being relieved of duty. As they escort her toward the door, Thorne steps into her path. The MPs pause. Thorne looks at Avery, then at Vaughn. Admiral, I'd like to request permission to review these files. If they're authenticated as claimed, we have an obligation to investigate. Denied, Vaughn snaps. With all due respect, sir, if these files contain evidence of a compromised mission, I need to see them. It's my responsibility. Your responsibility is to follow orders, Commander. Thorne doesn't back down. And my orders are to ensure operational integrity. If there's evidence of procedural violations in a classified operation, I'm required to review it. Vaughn glares, but he's outnumbered now. Brooks is nodding slowly. Graves looks uncertain but doesn't object. The other officers are murmuring among themselves, the tide turning. Fine, Vaughn says through clenched teeth. Review the files, but this stays internal. No external reports, no media contact, no communication outside this command until I personally authorize it. Clear, Mom. Crystal, sir. The MPs lead Avery out. As the door closes behind her, she catches one last glimpse of the war room. Thorne is already pulling up the files on the main screen. Rhodes is helping him navigate the interface. Vaughn is standing alone at the head of the table, staring at the display with an expression that's equal parts fury and fear. Avery allows herself the smallest smile. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just recognition. The first domino has fallen. The rest will follow. She just has to stay free long enough to see it through. The holding room where they take her is exactly what she expected. Concrete walls painted institutional beige. Steel table bolted to the floor. Two chairs that were probably uncomfortable when they were new 30 years ago. The MPS leave her there, uncuffed, not restrained, but definitely contained. She sits, hands flat on the table surface, and waits, breathing, controlled, steady. 90 minutes pass. Then the door opens. Thorne steps in, and alone this time. He closes the door carefully behind him. They're going to crucify you. His voice is quiet, factual. I know. Vaughn is calling in every favor he has. Graves is drafting formal charges. By tomorrow morning, you'll be facing a court-martial for unauthorized access, insubordination, and compromising classified operations. Avery nods. Expected. Thorne pulls out the other chair, sits down heavily. So why did you do it? Why torch your career for files that might not even prove anything? Because it's the truth, and the truth matters. The truth gets people killed, Lieutenant Commander, especially when it's inconvenient for admirals with 30 years of political capital. Avery meets his eyes. Then I guess I'm inconvenient. Thorne studies her for a long moment. Then he leans forward, lowers his voice. I reviewed the files, all of them, the relay logs, the override codes, the timestamps, the authentication records. He pauses. It's all there. Vaughn intercepted the distress signal. He had the clear authority to forward it to extraction teams. He chose not to. The question is why? Does it matter? Yes, it does. Thorne's voice hardens. Because Vaughn isn't a coward. He's a lot of things. Ambitious, political, sometimes ruthless. But he's not the kind of man who abandons people without a damn good reason. Maybe his reason was more important than 6 lives. Your father was one of those 6. I'm aware. Silence falls between them. Heavy, charged. Then Thorne continues. Shadow One was leading a joint operation, not just SEAL team. CIA was involved. The mission brief is in the files. He pulls out a tablet, shows Avery the screen. Operation Kingfisher. Eyes-only primary objective extract. Asset codename Nightingale secondary. Secure intelligence package. Authorization CIA/J. SOC. Joint Command. If Vaughn pulled the plug, it wasn't just his decision. Someone higher up the chain gave that order. Someone with authority over both military and intelligence operations. Avery absorbs this information, processing, calculating. You think my father compromised the mission? No, Thorne says firmly. I think your father did his job, but I also think something happened out there that couldn't go public. Something that made 6 men expendable compared to the larger objective. Before Avery can respond, the door opens again. Rhodes bursts in, slightly out of breath, tablet clutched in both hands. Commander, you need to see this. Now. Thorne stands. What is it? Rhodes places the tablet on the table. The screen shows a live feed, war room. Vaughn at the front, smaller group now, just senior officers. The system archives all briefings automatically. This is happening right now. He unmutes the audio. Vaughn's voice fills the small room. Tense, defensive. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood has overstepped every boundary. She's accessed files without proper authorization, made accusations that undermine command integrity. This is textbook insubordination driven by personal vendetta. Graves nods in agreement. Her father's disappearance has clearly compromised her judgment. She should never have been given this assignment. But Brooks shakes his head. That doesn't explain the relay logs, Admiral. The override code is authenticated. The timestamps match official records. Either someone fabricated that data 20 years ago, or the distress call was intercepted exactly the way she described. Ocean Vaughn's face tightens. The logs are incomplete, corrupted. They don't show the full operational context or the constraints we were operating under. Thorne's voice comes through the speakers. He must have returned to the meeting. Then show us the full context, Admiral. If there's more to the story, if there were legitimate operational reasons, now's the time to present them. Vaughn turns. The camera angle shifts to capture his face. The full context is classified above your clearance, Commander. My clearance is top secret SCI with JSOC read-in. Same level as yours, sir. Not for this operation. The room on the screen goes silent. Everyone processing what that means. Then Thorne speaks again. Voice hard. Admiral, if you're claiming special access protocols beyond normal classification, you need to provide justification. Otherwise, this looks like an attempt to hide evidence. Vaughn's jaw works, trapped again. If he provides the justification, he reveals whatever he's been hiding. If he doesn't, he confirms the cover-up. The silence stretches. 10 seconds. 15. Finally, Vaughn speaks. This meeting is over. Commander Thorne, Lieutenant Rhodes, you are both dismissed immediately. That's an order. The feed cuts to black. Rhodes looks at Avery and Thorne. He's going to bury this. Classify everything under national security. Lock it down so tight nobody can touch it. Thorne crosses his arms. Not if the data is already distributed across multiple systems. He can still pull rank, seize the servers, claim operational security emergency. Then we need to move faster than he does. Thorne looks at Avery. You said the decryption pulled full relay logs. What else is in those files? Avery hesitates. This is the moment. Trust or hold back. She decides. There's a beacon. Thorne blinks. What? The Kingfisher files don't just contain relay logs and override codes. They have the original distress signal. And embedded in that signal is a locator beacon, military grade, the kind designed to stay active for decades if it has a power source. Rhodes's eyes widen. You're saying Shadow 1 is still transmitting? I'm saying the beacon is still transmitting. Whether anyone is alive to maintain it is another question entirely. Thorne leans against the wall, processing the implications. If there's an active beacon, we can triangulate coordinates, run a satellite sweep, confirm whether it's a genuine signal or some kind of automated echo. It's genuine. Avery's voice carries absolute certainty. I've been tracking it for 3 months. Weakest signal, intermittent, but consistent. Someone is keeping that beacon alive. Your father. Maybe, or someone who knows what happened to him. Thorne pulls out his encrypted phone, dials a number from memory. This is Commander Thorne, authorization code Tango 79er Charlie. I need immediate access to satellite imaging for specific coordinates. Priority override. He listens, then rattles off a string of numbers. Latitude, longitude, elevation markers. Avery's coordinates, the ones she's been watching for months. The numbers burned into her memory. Thorne ends the call. We'll have imaging in 20 minutes. If there's something out there, we'll see it. Vaughn will shut it down the moment he hears about the request, Rhodes points out. Then we make sure he doesn't hear about it until it's too late. Thorne looks at Avery. You've got one shot at this, Lieutenant Commander. If that beacon is real, if there's actual evidence that Shadow 1 survived, it changes everything. But if it's a dead end, if it's just equipment, malfunction, or automated systems, Vaughn will use it to prove you're chasing ghosts. You'll lose everything. Avery stands. It's not a dead end. I've spent 20 years preparing for this moment, Commander, I'm sure. The door opens again. One of the MPs steps in, young, uncertain. Commander Admiral Vaughn is requesting Lieutenant Commander Blackwood's immediate presence. Thorne doesn't move. Tell the Admiral she's being debriefed on matters related to operational security. She'll be available when the debrief is complete. He said immediately, sir. Thorne's expression doesn't change. And I said she's being debriefed. If the Admiral has concerns, he's welcome to file a formal complaint through proper channels. The MP hesitates, then nods and withdraws. Thorne turns back to Avery. You've got maybe 20 minutes before Vaughn escalates this. Use them wisely. Avery doesn't waste time. She pulls Rhodes aside, lowers her voice. The decryption pulled more than just relay logs. There's a secondary file, buried deeper, mission parameters, target profiles, rules of engagement, full operational brief. Rhodes pulls up his tablet, fingers flying across the virtual keyboard. I see it, encrypted with a tertiary layer. I can crack it, but it'll take time. You've got 15 minutes. That's not nearly enough for... Make it enough, Rhodes swears quietly, then hunches over the tablet with intense focus. Thorne watches them both, arms crossed. You're playing an extremely dangerous game, Lieutenant Commander. If this goes sideways, you're not just losing your career. You're looking at federal charges, possibly prison time. I lost my father 20 years ago, Commander. Avery's voice is steady, matter of fact. Everything since then has been borrowed time. If I have to spend some of that time in prison to find out what happened to him, that's a price I'm willing to pay. Thorne's expression softens fractionally. He'd be proud of you, Shadow, the real one. He'd be proud of what you've become. Avery's throat tightens. She doesn't trust herself to speak, so she just nods. 10 minutes crawl by like hours. Rhodes works in silence, occasionally muttering under his breath, swearing creatively at firewalls and encryption protocols. Then he looks up, face pale but triumphant. I've got it. Partial decryption, enough to see the mission brief and authorization chain. He turns the tablet so they can both see. The screen shows a document header. Operation Kingfisher. Classified. Eyes only authorization CIA/J SOC. Joint Command. Thorne reads aloud slowly. Primary objective extract asset codename Nightingale. Chinese national. High-value defector with intelligence on regional chemical weapons programs and supply networks. He scrolls down. Secondary objective, secure intelligence package. Hard drives containing network maps, personnel lists, operational protocols. On a tertiary objective, eliminate hostile presence without detection. Leave no evidence of American involvement. Standard Black Ops parameters, Rhodes murmurs. Not standard. Avery points to a section near the bottom. Look at the authorization chain. It doesn't go through normal SEAL command structure. Thorne squints at the screen, then his face goes pale. That's not Navy authorization. That's not even Pentagon. It's agency, Avery confirms. Kingfisher was a joint operation. CIA provided intelligence and assets. SEALs provided extraction capability, which means Vaughn wasn't just following military orders. He was caught between two separate chains of command. And when the mission went sideways, someone had to take the fall, Thorne says quietly. Shadow 1. Exactly. Rhodes scrolls further. There's more. Post-mission analysis filed 6 months after Kingfisher went dark. He reads silently for a moment, then looks up with shock on his face. It says the intelligence package was compromised before extraction. Hostile forces intercepted the team. Shadow 1 made the tactical decision to scatter. Ordered his team to split up and evade. Last confirmed transmission was a distress signal requesting immediate evacuation. Signal was acknowledged at command level, but extraction was not authorized. By Vaughn. By someone with authority over Vaughn, Thorne corrects. The authorization to deny extraction came from higher up the chain. Someone with oversight of both CIA and military operations. The implications settle over them like a heavy blanket. He pulled the extraction because the agency told him to. Avery's voice is barely above a whisper. Because whatever happened out there, whoever gave the orders, it was more important than 6 lives. Before anyone can respond, the door slams open. Vaughn strides in, face thunderous, flanked by 2 more impacientes. Commander Thorne, you're out of line. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood is under formal arrest. She's to be confined to quarters immediately pending courts-martial proceedings. Thorne doesn't move. On what authority, Admiral? On my authority as commanding officer of this installation. Your authority is compromised, sir. The evidence suggests you were directly involved in the operational decisions surrounding Kingfisher. Until an independent review board is convened, you have a clear conflict of interest. Vaughn takes a step forward, fury barely contained. Are you questioning my command, Commander? I'm questioning your judgment in this specific matter, sir. There's a significant difference. For a moment, it looks like Vaughn might lose control entirely. His hands clench. His jaw works. But then he takes a breath, forces himself back under control. When he speaks, his voice is ice. You're relieved of duty, Commander, effective immediately. Report to the adjutant for reassignment to administrative duties. You can't. I just did, and if you continue to interfere with this investigation, I'll have you escorted off this base in handcuffs. Clear. Before Thorne can respond, Rhodes's tablet chimes. An urgent alert. He glances down. His eyes widen. Satellite imagery is in. Everyone freezes. Vaughn turns slowly. What satellite imagery? Rhodes doesn't answer. Just taps the screen, projects the feed onto the wall-mounted display. High-resolution satellite image. Dense jungle terrain. Mountains rising in the background. Rivers cutting through valleys. Philippine archipelago. Exactly where Avery said it would be. And in the center of the image, barely visible through the dense canopy, a small clearing. In that clearing, a structure. Makeshift. Camouflaged with natural materials, but unmistakably man-made. And next to the structure on the infrared overlay, a heat signature. Small, steady, active. Rhodes zooms in. The heat signature resolves into a distinct pattern. Not random, not natural. It's pulsing. 4 seconds on, 4 seconds off, 4 seconds on. Avery's breath catches in her throat. The rhythm her father taught her when she was 6 years old, before his last deployment, before everything changed. The rhythm she's been using to stay calm for 20 years. The rhythm that no one else in the world would know means anything. That's Shadow 1, she whispers. Vaughn's face drains of color. He stares at the screen like it's showing him a ghost. That's impossible. The mission was 20 years ago. No one survives that long in hostile territory without support, without resupply, without... Someone did. Thorne's voice cuts through Vaughn's denial like a blade. And you left him there. You had the authority to extract. You chose not to. Vaughn doesn't respond. Can't respond. Because the evidence is right there on the screen. Undeniable. Incontrovertible. The beacon, the heat signature, the proof that Shadow One didn't die, didn't desert, didn't disappear into the fog of war. He was left behind, abandoned by his own command. And he's been waiting for 20 years. Avery steps forward, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to break through. Admiral Vaughn, I'm formally requesting permission to lead an extraction team. The beacon is active, the coordinates are confirmed. We have a clear window of opportunity to bring him home. Vaughn shakes his head slowly. Request denied. Sir, I said denied, Lieutenant Commander. Vaughn's voice cracks slightly, just enough to show the fear underneath the authority. That area is hostile territory. We don't have assets in position. We don't have clearance from local authorities. We don't have diplomatic authorization. It would be a suicide mission based on incomplete intelligence. It's a rescue mission based on verified intelligence, Avery counters. It's a fantasy. Vaughn points at the screen. That beacon could be automated, could be a trap, could be anything except what you desperately want it to be. I'm not sending men into an operational black hole based on wishful thinking and a 20-year-old grudge. Thorne steps between them. Admiral, with all due respect, this isn't your decision to make anymore. The evidence clearly indicates you have a personal stake in keeping this situation buried. Standard protocol requires an independent review board and removal from operational authority. Vaughn's eyes flash dangerously. You're already relieved of duty, Commander. Don't make this worse for yourself. No, sir. I'm doing my job, which is protecting the integrity of this command. And right now, that means removing you from the decision-making process regarding any operations related to Kingfisher. The room goes deathly silent. The MPS shift uncomfortably. Neither sure whose orders to follow. Rhodes stands frozen, tablet still displaying the satellite image. The beacon still pulsing with that distinctive rhythm. Avery stands perfectly still, every muscle coiled, waiting to see which way this breaks. Vaughn's hand moves toward his phone. Thorne's hand moves toward his naked arm. Not drawing, just resting there. A clear message. Don't, Thorne says quietly. Don't make this worse than it already is. Step back. Let the review board handle it. Do the right thing. Vaughn hesitates. Then his hand drops. His shoulders sag. For the first time, he looks old, tired, defeated by the weight of a decision made 2 decades ago. You don't understand what you're doing. The agency will bury all of you. They'll classify this so deep you'll never see daylight again. They'll destroy your careers and call it protecting national security. Then we'll deal with the agency, Thorne says. But first we're bringing Shadow One home. He turns to one of the MPs. Contact Captain Rodriguez. Tell her I need an extraction team prepped and ready to deploy within 6 hours. Full combat load, jungle environment, hostile territory, 8 operators minimum. The MP hesitates, looks at Vaughn, then back at Thorne. Sir Admiral Vaughn is the commanding. Admiral Vaughn is relieved pending review. Thorne's voice carries absolute authority. I'm taking operational command under emergency protocols. Anyone who has a problem with that can file a formal complaint after we complete this mission. Clear. The MP nods slowly, then steps out to make the call. Vaughn looks at Avery, really looks at her for the first time, and for a moment the professional mask slips completely. She sees guilt, regret, fear, all the emotions he's been burying for 20 years. He was my friend. Vaughn's voice is barely audible. Shadow. Marcus Blackwood. We served together in Fallujah, in Kandahar. I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want any of this. But you did leave him. Avery's voice is steady. I had orders from people so far above my pay grade I couldn't even see them. You had a choice. You could have said no. You could have gone on record. You could have fought for your team instead of your career. Vaughn's face crumples slightly. No, I couldn't, and you'll understand that someday. When the agency comes calling, when they give you the same impossible choice between one life and thousands, between your conscience and your duty, you'll make the same decision I did. I'm not you, Admiral. Vaughn almost smiles, bitter, sad. Not yet, but you will be. The job makes us all into versions of people we never wanted to become. He turns and walks out, shoulders bent, flanked by the remaining MP, who follows at a respectful distance. The door closes behind him with a soft click that sounds like finality. The room exhales collectively. Rhodes slumps into a chair, tablet nearly slipping from his hands. Thorne runs a hand over his face, suddenly looking every one of his 58 years. Avery stands at the display, staring at the satellite image, at the beacon still pulsing with that familiar rhythm. 20 years of waiting, one signal, one truth. Thorne moves beside her. You understand what this means, right? If we go in there, the agency will push back hard. They'll classify everything. They'll disavow the mission. If something goes wrong, we're completely on our own. No backup, no political cover, no career safety net. I know. And you still want to do this? Avery turns to him, her eyes clear, determined, absolutely certain. Commander, I've been preparing for this my entire life. I didn't join the Navy to file reports or sit in briefing rooms. I did it for this exact moment, to finish what my father started, to bring him home. Thorne studies her, sees the absolute conviction, the unshakable determination. Then he nods. All right, but we do this smart. We don't go in blind. We get every piece of available intel. We plan multiple extraction routes. We prep for every possible contingency. And we bring enough firepower to fight our way out if everything goes sideways. Agreed, Rhodes stands, energy returning. I'll start pulling detailed satellite images. Map the terrain, identify entry and exit points. Calculate optimal helicopter insertion coordinates. We'll need low-altitude approach to avoid radar detection. And we'll need official authorization, Thorne adds. Even with Vaughn's sidelines, someone higher up the chain needs to sign off. Otherwise, we're running an unauthorized military operation on foreign sovereign territory. That's an international incident waiting to happen. Avery reaches into her pocket, pulls out a plain white business card. No name, no title, just a phone number and a single word printed in simple black text. Veritas, I have authorization. Thorne takes the card, studies it. What is this legacy operator program? CIA runs it. Children of agents or operators who went dark under questionable circumstances. We're identified young, trained extensively, given access to resources and classified information, and given one mission: finish what our parents started. Your agency, Rhodes, sounds shocked. I'm Navy, Avery corrects, but I'm also legacy, which means I have unique clearance, I have operational support, and I have standing authorization to pursue recovery operations related to my parents' last mission. Thorne hands the card back carefully. Then let's make the call. Avery dials the number. It rings once, twice. Then a voice answers. Male, mid-40s, professional but not cold. Veritas, Shadow Legacy, authorization code Blackwood 77 Tango, Requesting immediate extraction, authorization for Operation Kingfisher, follow-up. Beacon confirmed active. Coordinates locked. Team standing by. A pause. The sound of rapid typing in the background. Then the voice returns with barely concealed emotion. Authorization granted, Avery. You're cleared for full operational support. Transport logistics and tactical backup are being mobilized now. ETA to your location is 6 hours. Equipment manifest will be transmitted within 30 minutes. Understood. The voice softens perceptibly. Your father was one of the best operators this program has ever produced. The absolute best. Bring him home. I will. The line goes dead. Avery pockets the phone, looks at Thorne. We're cleared. 6 hours. Thorne nods sharply. Then we've got work to do. Let's move. The next 5 hours are controlled chaos. Briefings conducted in rapid succession, gear checks performed with meticulous attention to detail, route planning done and redone until every contingency has a backup plan. Thorne pulls together a team, 8 operators, all volunteers, all with extensive combat experience in jungle environments, all willing to risk their careers on a mission that might not even be sanctioned by the time they land. Rhodes handles the technical side, drones for reconnaissance, encrypted communication systems, backup servers in case primary systems are compromised. Everything they'll need to stay connected and covered, even if official support evaporates. Avery spends the time in the armory, going through her personal gear with the kind of meticulous precision that separates professionals from amateurs. Plate carrier adjusted for perfect fit. Magazines loaded and counted twice. Medical kit checked and restocked. Knife sharpened. Sidearm cleaned and test fired. Rifle zeroed and verified. Every piece of equipment checked, rechecked, then checked once more. She's done this 1,000 times in training, but this time is different. This time it's real. Thorne appears in the doorway. You ready? Avery looks up from field stripping her rifle for the 3rd time. As I'll ever be. Good. Because we've got a complication. What kind? The kind where Admiral Vaughn made a phone call before we locked him down completely. And now we've got agency oversight breathing down our necks. They're sending a liaison to, quote, supervise, unquote, the operation. Avery's jaw tightens. Who thought Agent Kendrick Reeves? He'll be on the transport. We don't get a vote. Reeves, Avery knows the name, knows the reputation. 20 years of black operations across 3 continents. Ruthless when necessary, efficient always, and loyal to the agency above everything else, including truth, justice, and individual human lives. He's going to try to shut this down or control the narrative. Probably both. But he can't stop us once we're airborne. And by the time we land, we'll have eyes on the target. He can complain all he wants after that. We're not leaving without Shadow 1. Avery nods. Then let's move. The transport helicopter is a Black Hawk, unmarked. Civilian registration number that probably won't hold up to serious scrutiny, but the crew is military through and through. They lift off at exactly 0300 hours. Rotor blades cutting through the pre-dawn darkness with rhythmic precision. Avery sits near the door, rifle across her lap, watching the lights of the base fade into blackness below. Then nothing but darkness. Ocean, islands, jungle. The world reduced to night and motion in the steady thrum of rotors overhead. Agent Kendrick Reeves sits across from her, mid-50s, gray streaking through dark hair. Dressed in contractor casual. Jeans, tactical shirt, no insignia. Nothing to identify him as agency or military or anything except a well-conditioned man with alert eyes. He's been silent for the first 20 minutes of the flight, watching, assessing. Now he leans forward slightly. You know this is a mistake, right? Avery doesn't look at him, keeps her eyes on the darkness outside. I know it's necessary. Necessary for who? For you, for your personal closure, or for the 8 men who might die trying to rescue someone who's probably been dead for 2 decades? He's not dead. You don't know that. You can't know that. You have a heat signature and a beacon signal. That doesn't prove human presence. Could be automated systems. Could be equipment malfunction. Could be a dozen things that aren't your father alive and waiting. Avery finally looks at him, her voice steady, cold. I know the beacon is active. I know the heat signature pattern is consistent with maintained human presence. I know my father didn't desert. And I know he's alive because I can feel it. Reeves sits back slightly. Your father was an exceptional operator, one of the best I ever worked with. But exceptional operators die in the field all the time. That's the job. That's the reality we all sign up for. And then why did Vaughn pull the extraction? Because mission parameters changed, because the intelligence package was compromised, because 6 men weren't worth starting an international incident or exposing agency networks that took decades to build. 6 men. Avery repeats the words like they taste bitter. That's what they were to you. Numbers on a spreadsheet, assets to be expended when the cost-benefit analysis tilted the wrong way. That's what they were to the mission. To the larger strategic objective, yes. Reeves's eyes are hard, unapologetic. You want to hate me for that, go ahead. But don't pretend you're any different. Your legacy, you've been trained the exact same way, to prioritize mission over individual, to make the hard calls when emotional attachment conflicts with operational necessity. Avery holds his gaze. The difference is I'm making the call to bring him home, no matter what it costs. Even if it means putting 8 more lives at risk for 1 man who might already be dead. They volunteered, every single one of them, because they understand what you apparently don't, that leaving people behind corrodes everything we claim to stand for. Thorne, sitting 2 seats over, speaks up. With all due respect, Reeves, you can save the moral lecture. We're doing this. You can help, or you can stay on the bird when we hit the ground. Your choice. Reeves smiles. It's not a friendly expression. I'll stay. Someone needs to document this disaster when it all goes sideways. Someone needs to write the after-action report that explaining how good intentions led to dead operators. The flight continues in tense silence. 2 hours pass. Then they cross into international airspace. The jungle below is an endless sea of dark green. No lights, no roads, no signs of human habitation. Just wilderness that has swallowed countless men over countless wars. The pilot's voice crackles over the comm system. 5 minutes to drop zone, conditions are clear, no hostile radar detected. But once we're on the ground, you're ghosts. No backup, no air support. You call for extract, we'll come. But don't expect cavalry if things get hot. Understood, Thorne responds. The Black Hawk descends rapidly, fast and low, skimming the treetops close enough that branches scratch against the undercarriage. Avery checks her rifle one final time. Chamber clear. Safety on. Magazine seated properly. She glances at the team. They're ready, focused, professional. 8 pairs of eyes showing determination instead of fear. The helicopter touches down in a clearing barely large enough to accommodate the rotor span. Skids sinking slightly into soft earth. Go, go, go! The crew chief's voice cuts through the rotor noise. They're out in seconds, boots hitting ground, rifles up, perimeter established with practiced efficiency. The Black Hawk lifts off immediately, disappearing into the night sky. The sound of rotors fading to nothing. And then it's just them. 8 operators, 1 agency liaison, and a jungle that hasn't seen friendly forces in 20 years. Thorne takes point position. Hand signals only. No verbal communication yet. Avery moves up beside him. Rhodes is on communications, tablet strapped to his tactical vest. Tracking the beacon signal. Signal is strong, 2 clicks, northeast. Terrain is extremely rough. Expect slow movement. They move out, silent, efficient, every step calculated to minimize noise and visible disturbance. The jungle is alive with sound, insects creating a constant background hum, birds calling in the darkness, distant howls of animals hunting or being hunted, but no human sounds, no engines, no voices, no indication that anyone has been here in years. Just nature reclaiming territory that was briefly contested and then abandoned. And somewhere in that wilderness, a beacon, a signal, a man who's been waiting. They reach the coordinates 90 minutes later. The structure is exactly where the satellite imagery showed it would be, camouflaged with natural materials. Hidden beneath the canopy, but unmistakably deliberate in its construction. Walls woven from branches and sealed with mud. Roof made of layered leaves and palm fronds. A door, crude but functional. And outside the door, sitting calmly on a fallen log as if he's been expecting them, a man. He's thin, weathered by 2 decades of tropical sun and survival. Beard gone completely gray. Clothes patched and repatched so many times the original fabric is barely visible. But his posture is straight, alert, the bearing of a warrior who never stopped being ready. He's holding something small. The beacon, still pulsing with that distinctive rhythm. He looks up as they approach. His eyes are sharp, clear, alive with intelligence and awareness. Thorne raises one hand slowly. Universal signal for friend, not foe. Shadow 1. The man stands in a single fluid motion. Despite the obvious toll of 20 years, he moves like someone who has maintained discipline and training even in isolation. He looks at Thorne, at the team, at Avery. His gaze lingers on her, recognition flickering across his weathered features. And then very quietly, in a voice roughened by years but still unmistakably familiar, he speaks. Took you long enough. Avery's knees nearly buckle. That voice, older, rougher, worn by 2 decades of isolation and hardship, but unmistakable. The voice that taught her to count, to read, to shoot, to breathe when fear threatened to overwhelm everything else. She takes one step forward, then another, then a third. Her rifle hangs forgotten at her side, safety still on. Finger nowhere near the trigger. Nothing else exists except the man standing 10 feet away. The man who's been dead in every way except literally for 20 years. Captain Marcus Blackwood, Shadow 1, her father, alive. She stops 3 feet away, doesn't reach out, not yet, because she needs to be absolutely certain, needs to know this isn't some elaborate deception or desperate hallucination born of 20 years of hope deferred. Dad, the word comes out barely above a whisper. Rough with emotion she spent 2 decades learning to suppress. Marcus looks at her, really looks at her, taking in every detail with the focused attention of someone cataloging something precious. The uniform with commander's insignia. The rifle carried with professional familiarity. The way she stands with weight balanced and ready. The way she breathes in that distinctive rhythm he taught her before she could tie her own shoes. He hears it, recognizes it immediately. The breathing. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out. You kept it. His voice cracks slightly around the edges, emotion bleeding through decades of practiced control. The breathing pattern, the rhythm I taught you. You kept it all these years. You taught me everything. Marcus lifts his left sleeve with deliberate slowness, reveals a tattoo that's faded but still clearly visible. A trident, the word shadow in bold letters, and beneath it a string of numbers, geographic coordinates. The exact same tattoo on Avery's right shoulder blade, the one she got on her 18th birthday without asking permission or seeking approval. A promise to herself, to him, to the possibility that he was still alive somewhere. You got the ink. I got the ink, the exact coordinates, the exact design, a promise that I'd find you. And then she moves, closes the distance in 2 quick steps, wraps her arms around him with all the strength and desperation of 20 years compressed into a single moment. He's thinner than she remembers, all bone and muscle in survival with no spare flesh. But he's warm, solid, real. Marcus holds her back with a grip that says, I'm alive. I'm here. I never stop fighting to come back to you. They stand like that for a long moment, not speaking, just breathing together. 4, 4, 4, in, hold, out. The rhythm that kept them both sane when everything else fell apart. Tears run down Avery's face. She doesn't try to hide them or wipe them away, just lets them fall. 20 years of grief and rage and desperate hope crashing over her like a tsunami. Marcus pulls back slightly, just enough to look at her properly. You grew up. You're not the little girl I left behind. You stayed alive. That's all that matters. I left you alone for 20 years. That's not nothing. The words come out harder than Avery intends. You did leave me alone. Marcus nods, doesn't flinch from the accusation, doesn't try to deflect or minimize. I know, and I'm sorry for that. More sorry than words can express. But I didn't have a choice. Not really. There's always a choice. Not this time. Not with what was at stake. Thorne steps forward. He's been hanging back, giving them space, but now he moves closer with obvious emotion on his weathered face. Marcus sees him, recognition dawning. Sully. Ghost. The 2 men embrace briefly, military style, but genuine emotion underneath the professional exterior. You kept your promise, Marcus says quietly. Told you I'd watch over her. Thorne's voice is rough with feeling. She became everything you hoped for. Everything and more. She's the one who found the beacon, decrypted the files, forced the whole system to confront what happened. She did this. Marcus looks at Avery with unmistakable pride. Show me your shooting stance. It's an odd request in the middle of a reunion, but Avery doesn't question it. She shifts her weight automatically, brings her rifle up, left foot forward, right foot back, shoulders squared, breathing controlled and steady. Marcus circles her slowly. assessing with the critical eye of an instructor who's spent decades teaching warriors. He reaches out, adjusts her right elbow by perhaps 2 degrees. Better, your fundamentals are excellent. You learned well. Then he steps back, and the professional mask cracks completely. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I missed everything. Your entire life, every birthday, every milestone, your graduation, your first deployment. I wasn't there for any of it. Avery lowers the rifle. You didn't leave by choice. You were abandoned. That's completely different. The result is the same. You grew up without a father. No, Avery's voice is fierce now. I grew up with the knowledge that my father was out there somewhere, that he would never abandon his mission, that he taught me everything I needed to survive and succeed. You were always with me, even when you weren't. Marcus's throat works. He looks away briefly, composing himself. Rhodes clears his throat tactfully, reminder that they're still in hostile territory, still exposed, still on a ticking clock. Sir, we should move to a more defensible position. Get inside the structure where we have better cover and concealment. Marcus nods sharply, professional mode reasserting itself. You're absolutely right, but there's something critical you need to know first, something that changes the entire extraction plan. He gestures toward the structure. I'm not alone out here. The door opens slowly. A woman steps out first. Mid-50s, Asian features, thin but strong. She's holding a machete, not threatening, just ready. The stance of someone who's had to defend themselves countless times. Behind her, 3 men emerge, all in their 50s or 60s, all lean from years of subsistence living, all alert and ready despite obvious exhaustion. Survivors. Marcus turns to address the team. Meet the Nightingale Network, 5 Chinese nationals who defected in 2005 with comprehensive intelligence on regional chemical weapons programs, military supply chains, operational protocols. They're the reason Kingfisher went dark, and they're the reason I stayed. Thorne processes this information rapidly. Vaughn didn't pull the extraction because of you personally. He pulled it because extracting these people would have exposed CIA operations across 3 countries. Exactly. Someone high up the chain made a calculation. 6 American lives versus an intelligence network that took decades to build. The network won, the woman speaks. Her English is accented but clear and educated. We couldn't leave. If we surfaced, if Beijing discovered we were alive, they would kill our families. Destroy everyone we'd ever known. Everything we risked our lives for would become meaningless. She looks at Marcus with obvious respect and affection. So Marcus stayed, protected us, taught us to survive, updated our intelligence gathering over 20 years. We became a family of sorts. Agent Reeves steps forward finally, all business. If these people have been maintaining intelligence gathering for 20 years, their information could be extremely valuable. Current, actionable. We need to extract all of them, get them to a secure location for proper debriefing. No, the woman's response is sharp, immediate. The moment we leave, our families die. Beijing has sources everywhere, in governments, in intelligence services. We can't risk it. Then we extract your families too. Avery says it with the calm certainty of someone who's already made the decision. Everyone turns to look at her. We don't just extract the network, we extract everyone. Full witness protection, new identities, complete security, the whole package. We do this right or we don't do it at all. Reeves shakes his head. That's operationally impossible. The logistics alone would require weeks of planning, coordination with multiple agencies, diplomatic clearances. We don't have that kind of time or authorization. Then we get it. Avery pulls out her phone. 6 hours ago, I was authorized for a full-scale recovery operation. That authorization didn't specify limits. It said do whatever's necessary to complete the mission. She looks at Marcus. You've sacrificed 20 years of your life. We're not asking you to sacrifice 1 more minute. We're bringing everyone home. Marcus studies his daughter with undisguised amazement and pride. You sound like a commander, like someone who makes decisions that matter. I learned from the best. Before anyone can respond, Rhodes's tablet emits an urgent chime. We've got incoming satellite communication. Encrypted channel. High priority. He taps the screen, projects it onto a portable display unit. Admiral Garrett Vaughn appears on the screen. He's in civilian clothes now. No uniform, no rank insignia. Just a tired man in a wrinkled button-down shirt who looks like he hasn't slept in days. I'm monitoring your operation through official channels. His voice is subdued, defeated in a way that seems to age him 10 years. I know you've located Shadow 1 by Boeing, and I know about the Nightingale Network. Marcus steps into view of the camera. Garrett, Vaughn's face tightens, muscles working in his jaw. Marcus, I'm sorry. I had orders from so far above my head, I couldn't even see who was giving them. I know. Marcus's voice is surprisingly gentle, understanding even. You were caught between the agency and the Navy, between operational security and human decency. Someone had to take the fall. It wasn't going to be you. It should have been me. Vaughn's voice breaks slightly. I've regretted it every single day for 20 years. Every goddamn day. Knowing you were out there. Knowing I made the call that left you there. Silence holds for several heartbeats. Then Vaughn continues with visible effort. I'm retired as of 4 hours ago, took the fall for the Kingfisher file release. Stripped of rank, pension reduced to minimum. But I negotiated something before they pushed me out. He looks directly at Avery through the camera. Full extraction authorization. For Shadow 1, for the entire Nightingale network, for their families, everything you need. Transport. Protection, new identities. It's all approved at the highest levels. Avery blinks in surprise. Why would you do that? Because your father was my friend, because I owe him 20 years of his life back, and because doing one thing right before I disappear is better than doing nothing. Marcus steps closer to the screen. I don't forgive you, Garrett. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That kind of betrayal doesn't wash away easily. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to do this one thing correctly. Let me help bring everyone home. Then tell me the status. Are the families being extracted? Already in motion? Vaughn's voice steadies as he shifts into operational mode. 12 family members total spread across Shanghai, Beijing, and Hong Kong. All extracted safely in coordinated operations over the past 3 hours. Currently in transit to Guam under diplomatic cover. They'll be reunited with the defectors within 72 hours. The Chinese woman's face crumples. Relief and disbelief warring for dominance. Tears streaming down weathered cheeks. 20 years of fear evaporating in a single sentence. Vaughn continues. You have 4 hours until local military forces become aware of activity in your sector. Hold your position. Defend if necessary. Full extraction force is inbound. We're bringing everyone home. Marcus nods slowly. What happens to you after this court-martial hearing next month? Likely conviction on procedural violations. Dishonorable discharge is possible. Maybe prison time. But I'll face it knowing I fixed this. That I brought you home. That counts for something. It counts for everything, Marcus says quietly. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. A small step toward eventual reconciliation. Thank you, Garrett. Vaughn nods once. Screen goes dark. Rhodes exhales slowly. That was unexpected. Redemption usually is, Thorne observes. He looks at Marcus. Do you trust him? Trust that the extraction is real and not some elaborate trap? I don't trust him personally, not yet, but I trust that he wants redemption badly enough to make this real. And sometimes that's enough to build on. Avery checks her watch. 4 hours. We need to fortify this position, set up defensive perimeter, and prepare for the possibility that hostile forces detect us before extraction arrives. The next 3 hours are controlled chaos. The team establishes a defensive perimeter around the structure with professional efficiency. Claymores positioned at natural choke points, overlapping fields of fire calculated and marked, fallback positions identified and prepared. Marcus works alongside them. His 20 years of isolation haven't dulled his tactical mind one bit. If anything, he's sharper, more efficient, every movement economical and purposeful. He and Avery set up an elevated sniper position overlooking the primary approach routes. Commanding view of the terrain. Perfect field of fire. They work in silence mostly. Muscle memory synchronizing naturally. Father and daughter. 2 generations of the same philosophy and training. Move quiet. Strike precise. Leave no trace. Finally, as they're finishing the position, Marcus speaks quietly. Your mother, Rebecca. She didn't die in childbirth like I told everyone. Avery's hand's still on the rifle she's been adjusting. What do you mean? Marcus pulls out a weathered envelope from his pack, hands it to her with obvious reluctance. Rebecca was CIA, my handler for Kingfisher. We fell in love during mission preparation, against every protocol, against direct orders, but it happened anyway. He pauses. choosing words carefully. When I went dark when the extraction was denied, she had an impossible choice. Blow her cover to search for me publicly, or maintain her position and protect the network we'd built. She chose the mission. Avery's voice is flat, emotionless. She chose to keep us both alive. Marcus corrects gently. Rebecca has been running Nightingale Logistics from Langley for 20 years, coordinating intelligence drops, protecting the defectors' families through back channels, maintaining the network. She's the primary reason we survived this long. Avery opens the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside, a photograph. Recent. A woman in her 50s, brown hair streaked with gray, strong features, and intelligent eyes that look tired but determined, and a handwritten note in neat script. Avery, I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you. Sorrier than words can possibly express. But I've been watching from a distance, always watching, tracking your progress, celebrating your achievements, even if you never knew. Your father and I made different sacrifices for the same reason, to protect something bigger than ourselves. I hope someday you can understand. I hope someday you can forgive. With all my love, Mom. Avery stares at the photo for a long moment. 28 years of believing her mother died giving birth to her. 28 years of guilt for a death that never happened. 28 years of questions that suddenly have answers. She's alive. My mother is alive. She's alive, and she's waiting for you. She'll be on the extraction flight. You'll see her in about 6 hours. Avery folds the letter carefully, tucks it into her vest pocket, over her heart. Does she know that we found you, that this is happening? She's been watching the satellite feed. She knows. She's been coordinating logistics from Langley this entire time. Far away in a classified operations room, deep inside CIA headquarters at Langley, Virginia, a woman sits alone at a terminal. Rebecca Blackwood, 53 years old. 28 years of field operations. 20 years running the most sensitive intelligence network in the Pacific Theater. And now watching a satellite feed of a Philippine jungle clearing. Watching her daughter and her husband sit side by side on an elevated platform. Rifles ready, breathing in perfect synchronization. The rhythm she taught both of them separately, connected across 2 decades of separation. Tears streamed down Rebecca's face unchecked. But her hands remain absolutely steady as she types coordinates. Routes transport aircraft. Coordinates extraction timing, down to the minute. She's been waiting for this moment for 20 years. She can wait 6 more hours. Back in the jungle, Rhodes' equipment starts pinging urgently. We've got movement, multiple heat signatures, 300 meters south and closing fast. Thorne moves to the perimeter position. How many? At least 30, maybe more. Mixed thermal signatures consistent with Philippine military, but some readings are anomalous, could be contractors or rogue elements. Hired by Beijing to monitor this area, Reeves says with certainty. They know Nightingale is here. They've probably been watching for years, waiting for someone to make a move so they could follow the trail. Marcus chambers around with practiced efficiency. Then they picked the wrong day to spring their trap. Avery scans the tree line through her rifle scope. I've got visual confirmation. 27 hostiles, mixed weapons, AK variants, RPGs. They're setting up for a coordinated assault. Thorne keys his radio. All units defensive positions. Hold fire until my command. Conserve ammunition. Make every shot count. We only have what we brought. The team moves with practiced efficiency. 8 operators plus Marcus. 9 rifles against 30 hostiles. Not great odds. Fast. But not impossible. Not with proper positioning and discipline. Marcus looks at Avery. Like the training scenarios I used to run with you. We never did this together for real. No, but I taught you everything you need. Fundamentals don't change. He adjusts his scope with fingers that show no tremor, despite 2 decades of isolation. I'll take left sector, you take right. Overlapping fields of fire. Priority targets RPG gunners first, then anyone attempting to flank. Standard counter-ambush protocol. Avery nods. Professional, focused. This is what all the training was for. The hostiles advanced through the jungle with reasonable tactical discipline, not elite special forces, but competent soldiers doing a job. Thorne waits patiently, lets them close to 200 meters, 150, 100. Then his voice cuts across the radio with calm authority. Fire! The jungle erupts with controlled violence. Precise bursts from the team's position, not spray and pray. Controlled fire. Professional marksmanship. Marcus takes the first RPG gunner. Center mass. The man drops instantly. The weapon falls unused. Avery takes the second RPG gunner. Headshot at 130 meters. The hostiles scatter immediately. Return fire, but their positioning is poor. They're exposed in terrain they don't know well. Thorne's team picks them apart methodically, professionally. 10 down in the first 30 seconds. The survivors pull back, regroup behind better cover, but they don't retreat completely. Someone's paying them too well for that. They try to flank, coming from the east through a natural drainage channel. Marcus sees the movement first. 4 hostiles using the creek bed, attempting to get around our right flank. I see them. Avery shifts her position slightly, angles for a clear shot. 4 hostiles moving in single file, using terrain features for cover. Professional enough to be dangerous. She controls her breathing. The rhythm automatic now. In, hold, out. Exhales halfway, squeezes the trigger with steady pressure. The lead hostile drops, the others freeze, confused about where the shot came from. She works the bolt smoothly, chambers another round. Second target, down. Third, down. Fourth, down. The flanking maneuver collapses completely. Marcus watches through his scope with undisguised pride. That's my girl. 4 shots, 4 hits, under pressure. Perfect fundamentals. The battle continues for another 20 minutes. The hostiles try 3 more assault attempts, each one turned back with heavy casualties and precision fire. Finally, the survivors break contact, melting back into the jungle, defeated. Rhodes does a rapid count. 18 confirmed casualties on hostile side, the rest scattered. We're clear for now, but they'll probably regroup and try again. Thorne checks the team. 2 wounded, nothing critical. Everyone's still operational. Avery scans the perimeter one final time through her scope, then lowers the rifle. Marcus does the same. They look at each other, and for the first time in 20 years, Marcus smiles. Really smiles. You've gotten exceptionally good. I had a good teacher. You had the best. Avery almost laughs. Modest as ever. Not modesty, just documented fact. The sound of rotors cuts through the jungle noise. 3 Blackhawks, coming in fast and low. Military formation. The extraction team, right on schedule. Thorne pops smoke. Green, standard friendly signal. The helicopters circle once, then descend in sequence. Loading proceeds with practiced efficiency. The Nightingale defectors board first, then the operators, then Marcus and Avery. Last to board, last to leave the position. As the helicopter lifts off, Avery looks down at the structure that was home for 20 years, at the jungle that almost became a grave, at the battlefield where father and daughter fought side by side for the first time. Marcus sits beside her. They don't talk, don't need to, just breathe together in that familiar rhythm, the shared language of survival and connection. The flight to Guam takes 6 hours. They land at a military base, classified section. No civilian access. Medical teams are waiting. Hot meals, clean clothes, debriefing rooms. But first a reunion. As Avery steps off the helicopter, she sees her. Rebecca Blackwood, 53 years old. Brown hair going gray. Dressed in civilian clothes. No rank, no insignia. Just a woman who's been waiting 28 years to meet her daughter face to face. They stand 10 feet apart, neither moving, both processing the reality of this moment. Avery doesn't know what to feel. Anger, relief, joy. Grief for all the lost years, all of it simultaneously. Rebecca takes the first step, then another, stops directly in front of Avery. You look like him. Same eyes, same stance, same determination. I don't know you. Avery says it without malice or anger, just stating simple fact. I know, that's my fault entirely. I made a choice 28 years ago. To protect the mission, to protect your father, to protect an intelligence network that might save thousands of lives. And in making that choice, I lost you. Rebecca's voice cracks slightly. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect understanding. I just want you to know that every single day for 28 years, I've thought about you, wondered about you, watched from whatever distance I could manage. You were never out of my mind, not once. Then why didn't you come forward? Why let me believe you were dead? Because if I surfaced publicly, Beijing would know, the agency would know, everyone would know, and the network would collapse instantly. Your father would die, the defectors would die. Their families would be tortured for information, then killed. Everything we sacrificed for would become meaningless. Rebecca's eyes are wet, but her voice stays strong. I chose the mission, and it cost me everything that mattered. Cost me watching you grow up. Cost me being your mother in any real sense. That's a price I'll carry forever. Avery looks at this woman, this stranger who gave birth to her, then disappeared into shadows. This woman who spent 3 decades protecting something bigger than personal happiness. She thinks about Vaughn, about his impossible choice, about the weight of decisions made in darkness with no good options. And she understands. Finally, truly understands. You did what you had to do, what you believed was right. Avery's voice is steady, but not cold. I don't like it. I'm not sure I can forgive it easily, but I understand it. And maybe understanding is a place to start. Rebecca nods slowly, tears flowing freely now. That's more than I deserve, more than I had any right to hope for. Marcus appears beside them. He and Rebecca look at each other across 2 decades of separation and shared sacrifice. Becca, Marcus, and then they're embracing desperately. 20 years of grief and guilt and stubborn love pouring out in a moment. Avery watches her parents together, alive, whole, a family she never thought she'd have. 6 months later, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The parade ground is packed with officers in dress uniforms, flags snapping in the autumn breeze, formal ceremony unfolding with military precision. Change of command ceremony. Admiral Sullivan Thorne stands at the podium, newly promoted, taking command of Naval Special Warfare Operations. In the front row, Marcus Blackwood wears his dress blues for the first time in 20 years. 4 rows of ribbons, Medal of Honor prominent among them. Awarded for 20 years of service under the most difficult circumstances imaginable. Beside him, Rebecca, still in civilian clothes. Her work remains classified, her sacrifice still secret from all but a handful. And beside them, Commander Avery Blackwood, promoted 2 months ago, commanding officer of the newly formed Legacy Operations Task Force, a specialized unit dedicated to recovering operators who went dark under questionable circumstances, finishing missions that were abandoned, bringing people home. The ceremony concludes. Avery finds her parents afterward in the crowd. They stand together. 3 Blackwoods, 3 generations of service and sacrifice. Marcus hands her something, a challenge coin, new design, a trident, the word shadow, and beneath it, legacy. They're minting these now for the program, for people like you who finish what their parents started, who refuse to leave anyone behind. Avery turns it over in her hand, heavy, significant. It's a heavy legacy to carry. It is, but you carry it exceptionally well. Rebecca touches her daughter's arm gently. We're proud of you, more proud than words can possibly express. It's the first time she said those specific words. The first time Avery's heard them from her mother. They settle into her chest, warm, real, precious. Thank you for everything, for the sacrifices you made so I could be here. They stand together as the crowd disperses around them, a family, whole, finally. Avery's phone vibrates, encrypted message. She reads it. Her face goes still. What is it? Marcus asks. Avery shows him the screen. Code name Raven Afghanistan. Operative dark since 2012. Legacy request. Extraction authorized beacon detected. Active signal. And attached a photo. A compound. High walls. Guard towers. Hostile territory. In the window, barely visible, a figure. Young, female, mid-20s. Second-generation legacy, just like Avery. Marcus studies the photo, then looks at his daughter. Your decision. Avery pockets the phone, looks at her parents, at the parade ground, at the life she's built from the ashes of theirs. I go. That's what we do. We bring them home. Rebecca nods. We expected that answer. But not alone this time, Marcus says firmly. Avery turns to him. Dad, you just got back. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. 20 years alone taught me something crucial. Family is worth fighting for. And that person in the window, they were family too. Part of the legacy family. He looks at Rebecca. We all go. All 3 of us. Rebecca smiles, the first genuine smile Avery has seen on her mother's face. Blackwood family tradition. We finish what we start. Avery looks at them both, her father, her mother, her team. 3 warriors, different generations, same mission. Bring them home, no matter the cost. She pulls out the challenge coin, runs her thumb over the engraving. Shadow, legacy. When do we leave? 72 hours, Marcus says. Gives us time to prepare properly, plan thoroughly, gather current intelligence. And say our goodbyes, Rebecca asks. No goodbyes this time, Marcus says firmly. We go together. We come back together. All of us. No one left behind, not ever again. Avery nods slowly, closes her fist around the coin. Then let's get to work. They turn together. Walk toward the operations building with synchronized steps. Three figures moving as one, breathing together in that familiar rhythm. 4, 4, 4. Behind them the sun sets over Fort Bragg, casting long shadows across the parade ground. Shadows that stretch, that move, that refuse to fade. Because some missions never truly end, some legacies demand completion across generations. And some families are forged not just in blood, but in fire and sacrifice, and the absolute refusal to leave anyone behind. Avery Blackwood stops at the operations building door, looks back one final time, at the parade ground, at the flags, at the ceremony celebrating service and duty. Tomorrow they hunt, but tonight, for the first time in her entire life, she's not alone. She has her father beside her. She has her mother supporting her. She has a legacy worth carrying forward. And she has a promise to keep. To every shadow still waiting in darkness, every operative still hoping someone will come, every voice still calling for home. The door closes behind them, and in the operations room, three warriors begin to plan, maps spreading across tables, satellite images projecting onto screens, encrypted communications routing through secure channels. The Blackwood family. Together, ready, unbreakable. And somewhere in Afghanistan, in a compound surrounded by walls and wire, and guards who think no one is coming, a young woman stands at a window, watching, waiting, hoping, holding a small device hidden in her palm, a beacon, blinking steadily with a rhythm she learned from her father before he vanished. 4 seconds on, 4 seconds off, 4 seconds on. The same rhythm that says, I'm here, I'm fighting, I'm waiting for someone to find me. And 72 hours from now, someone will. Three someones, a family of shadows, coming to bring her home, because that's what they do. That's what they've always done. And that's what they'll keep doing until every shadow finds light, until every ghost comes home, until every legacy is complete. The beacon blinks steadily in the darkness. 4, 4, 4. And in Fort Bragg, three warriors breathe in perfect synchronization. 4, 4, 4. Connected across continents and years. Connected by something stronger than distance or time or darkness. Connected by duty, by honor, by blood, by shadow, by legacy. Tomorrow they hunt. Tonight they prepare. And when they move as one. A family forged in fire, ready to bring another lost soul home, no matter what it costs, no matter how long it takes. Because shadows never truly disappear. They just wait for the right moment to step back into the light.